Willkommen bei Nautilus TV, hier im Maschinenraumstudio mit DJ Ricksky. Ich bin hier mit Danny Dan, the Beatman, aus der Boogie Down Bronx.
Yes, y'all. Boogie Down forever. Yeah. I've been out here for a minute in Cologne, man. I'm loving this stuff out here. Germany is fire. You better believe that.
Cool. How do you get started with music?
I've been starting with music since I was a little boy, digging through my mother's collection as a real young kid, listening to all the 60s sounds and 50s, going into the 70s. And it was really, really interesting music, so I just picked it up from there. And then as a young boy, she used to send me to the record stores to buy 45s for her. And I really got a feel for like buying records at that time, but didn't know much about, it was just something to listen to, not DJing as of yet. So as time went on, I started to get into the sounds more deeply. And my cousin would DJ, and he showed me how to DJ in the late 60s with just, one record player and turn one down and turn the other one up. So it was cool. I would just play one record, keep the party being continuous instead of playing one record at a time that we used to do before that, And then later on, he got into turntables with mixer, and he showed me how to do that within the very early 70s. And we used to just do like soul funk records and Latin records. That was our thing back then. And then later on, I could say I noticed hip-hop in 75 with Kool Herc jamming out in the street parks. And then I was like, oh, my God, I got to get into this. You know what I'm saying? But I had, like, most of the records that were out at that time that were really funky. Now I have to go out and buy them again to have two copies to see what these guys were doing. It was just more amazing to just do that. And then, bringing the one part of the record back over and over, which is the break. And that's how I started back in 75, just cutting breaks, and it just grew on me.
What part of the Bronx you from?
I am from, I was born and raised in the South Bronx, 149th Street, Southern Boulevard. Then I moved to 170th Street in the late 60s. And then I moved uptown after that shortly, because I only stood there for 2 years. And I moved uptown on 183rd Street in the Bronx. And that's where I got my start with hip-hop. And that was in 1970. But before that, I was more into the graffiti stuff. That started 71. And then I grew into 74. It was really, really big on the trains where it got more developed. Instead of just tagging, it was more like doing bigger pieces and everything. In 75, it really blew up crazy. Where it was much more, funkier stuff coming out. You know what I'm saying? And then that's when I seen hip-hop being done in the summertime. I was like, oh, shit, it's on now.
So I guess in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of gangs in the Bronx, right?
Oh, yes, there were. There were. A lot of my family members were part of those gangs, so I had no problem, maneuvering in the Bronx. But, there used to be a lot of crazy shit going on, but I was really too young to understand why they were doing what they were doing, and didn't understand it. I thought it was just like kids hanging out with, part of a club, you know what I'm saying? But, they never showed me no crazy shit. But I know they used to do a lot of wild stuff. As time went on, I started hearing about it and seeing it, and I was like, that's crazy, I just stuck to music and art. That was it, you know what I'm saying?
What was your first contact with the hip-hop culture?
The first contact was just seeing Kool Herc at the park. I used to go to the swimming pool not too far from my house.
Right.
So at the end of the night, we would be leaving around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I would hear the music at the park. I'm like, what the hell is this? With some big-ass speakers. You see Kool Herc with a big afro spinning these records. And I'm like, wow, we're going to chill out for a while, listen to some music. Then they started cutting up, and I seen Coke Rock was there, you know what I'm saying, doing this thing. And a few other cats that I don't even remember, but I know they were out there. And they were just doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? And I was very interested in it. And every time I went on the weekends, they would do it. You know what I'm saying? So it was cool. And sometimes even during the week. So we would just stay out there for long periods of time and just hang out and have a good time and then go home and talk about it. you know. And when I saw that, I was like, damn, this is dope. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't really no rappers at that time. So it was just like somebody will pick up the mic and just talk a little bit and then they would just stop. It was mostly the music. So that was what I was really into.
Describe your relationship with Lenny Roberts, who created the famous Ultimate Breaks and Beats.
Yes, one day I was digging for records. And how I used to get my records was I used to go to Downstairs Records. That's where everybody used to get their records. And it was on 42nd Street. If you walk on 42nd Street, you go down one flight, and it was like a little corridor with 45s on one side and the albums on the other side, and they would sell these breakbeat records. So that's when I started hanging out in the parks more and watching what they were playing. I was like, oh, snap, you know, I got to get these records. I was like, I asked somebody from the crew at the time, what's a Hercules, I was like, where do you get these records from? They said, go to Downstairs Records, you can find these records. So I would go, I was like, all right, cool. So I was really into shopping there. And they had moved that store around the corner. This was a little bit later on after the 70s. I think the 80s had hit. When I first seen Lenny Roberts, was a little bit earlier than that because I see him in the jams, just hanging out and chilling. But I didn't know he sold records until 1980. He was like, yo, come here. You looking to buy records? I'm like, yeah, why? What you got? I was like, he like had doubles of everything. So I was like, cool, let me buy them from you, you know what I'm saying? And they were a lot cheaper than the record store. So then me and him grew into a big relationship, and we used to go digging together. And we would find records for like really cheap and just buy them in groves, boxes and boxes of records. And we would come home, divide all our shit, and I would sell my half to certain stores. He would sell his half to certain stores and individual collectors. And I would take that money and go out and buy more records. And that's how it grew.
Cool. You feature some really obscure and super rare tracks on the Dusty Fingers compilation. How is it possible that a man from the Bronx, New York, comes out with, for example, East German breaks that even we over here didn't find?
I'm just saying, like, I have a lot of friends that hit me to a lot of records, but most of all, I came here in the 80s, and I was just buying records just blindly because of maybe someone played on the back of the record that I recognized a name or something. I just bought records, you know what I'm saying? And I've been here before. This is not the first time I've been, you know, in Germany, but this is the first time I've been to the new Germany since you were liberated 20 years ago from the East and West. And when I was there at that time, you know, DDR existed. I went through the DDR. I've been there, and it was just like real spooky with barbed wire machine guns, you know. But, you know, I just saw everything as what it was, and it was real cool, you know. It was very exciting for me. And I've been to Paris. So I bought records in every country I've been in at that time in the early 80s. And then I just got more into world music. Even before I've been to the European Unions, you know, I just bought records from Italy and stuff like that just to see what was going on. I was very curious because I just didn't buy American records. And at that time, around 1980, 81, 82, I already bought everything that you can possibly get in America that was, quote unquote, a breakbeat record, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I got to look for some other stuff.